life what you want, having the kind of relationships that you want, being able to have abundance where scarcity always exists. All you have to do is begin the process by being willing to contemplate the presence of that in your life. And I've always been a person that I can remember throughout my life as someone who could contemplate myself being able to do things that most people couldn't. I can give you a good example. When my mother got us all back together and we were living in Detroit, on the east side of Detroit, and we got a new television set. It was a black and white. It was a screen about this big. It was an Admiral, and we had it in our home, and it was like, oh my God, black and white television. You remember Uncle Milty and all and so on. And there was a guy that was on TV. His name was Steve Allen, and he was on The Tonight Show. And I was 11, 12, 13 years old. I was born in 1940, so I was 51 or 52, and I used to stay up every night and watch The Tonight Show. Even though I had to go to school the next day, there was just something about that show and, all of the characters and smock, and all the things that Steve Allen would do on it. And I would come down when I would be talking the next day, and I would be telling my mother and my two brothers that when I do The Tonight Show, this is what I would say. I wouldn't have said what Louis and I say, the way reacted, how he reacted to that. I would have said this, and I used to do this, and my brothers and my mother would say, "That's just Wayne. He's just nutty. He thinks he's on The Tonight Show. He thinks he's going to do The Tonight Show." And I would go up into my room at on this little tiny house that we lived in, a little 2-bedroom house that 5 of us lived in because my mother remarried, and I would see myself doing The Tonight Show. I would just practice it, and Steve Allen became someone that I was really enamored of. Well, fast forward, 30 years or whatever, and I've written a book, Your Erroneous Zones, and the Tonight Show calls, and they ask me if I would like to come on and do it. So I do my first stint on The Tonight Show. I did the show like 37 times over a period of 3 or 4 years with all these different hosts, but Johnny Carson was on, and the first guest on the very first show when I did the show was Steve Allen. And it was like something clicked in me that I had contemplated that as a child. I had always had a knowing, and I can remember sitting there talking to Johnny about this thing that, and Steve Allen was sitting there right next to me, and we were talking about that kind of thing. So that by putting my attention on something, it wasn't some deliberate thing that I was doing, when I was 11 or 12 years old that was designating that I was going to be a person who was going to be appearing on talk shows 30 years from now. It was just an awareness a willingness to contemplate myself in that kind of a place. And I think the power of contemplation is the thing that most people haven't harnessed yet. And when you harness it in your life, there's absolutely no limit to what you can attract into your life. If you absolutely stay focused on what it is that you're going to manifest and attract, you're not going to do it in your time. Jackson Browne sings a song that says, "And creation reveals its secrets by and by." I mean, you can't push the river. It's all done in divine time, but it will show. It will show. It will manifest. It will attract itself. And I'm never surprised any longer about anything that I put my thoughts on that I can attract it into my life. I just absolutely know that law of attraction and that it absolutely works. And I have absolutely no doubt about it. And I feel as if before I even came into this world, when I was in the world of spirit, that I had a conversation with God. And it was God saying to me, what would you like to do in this lifetime? And I said, well, I'd really like to spend a lifetime teaching self-reliance, because that's truly all I've ever done since the time I was just a little boy, through all my life. I mean, I could just go through all of the things that I've done. It's been always about teaching self-reliance. And God said, you're sure you want to spend a whole lifetime teaching self-reliance? I said, yeah, that's what I want to do. And he said, well, we better get your little ass into an orphanage then. Rumi said, this ancient Persian poet, brilliant, beautiful poet, he said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. It feels like bewilderment. It feels like awe. It feels like, even as I think about it now, I can feel myself tearing up behind my eyes, because only I know what is going on behind my eyeballs. It feels like so glorious and so sweet and so trusting, so knowing. You know, there's just this powerful knowing that you're not alone. There's this, you know, that it's like there's a safety, there's a sense of that you're not alone. I had this great experience years ago. There's a friend of mine, he's on KTAR, a radio station in Phoenix. His name's Pat McMahon, Irish Catholic guy. And Mother Teresa is to be his guest, right, on the same day that I'm his guest. So we're in the studio, you know, and Mother Teresa comes in. Now she's about 4'10", maybe weighs 80 pounds. And she's there to talk about a homeless shelter that she slept in the night before, to tell the people of Phoenix about this homeless shelter. And I'm there to talk about a book that I don't know which one it was. It was 10, 15 years ago. So Pat asks, tells Mother Teresa, is there anything that I can do for you? And you can imagine the bewilderment and the awe that this is an Irish Catholic guy from, you know, living in Phoenix, and Mother Teresa, a saint, is coming there, and you know, he's just bewildered. He's beyond bewildered. He just doesn't know what to do with himself. He's just so honored. And he says, is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything I can do? And she said, no. She said, I just came here to talk about the homeless shelter. He said, but Mother Teresa, he said, we have a 50,000 watt clear channel station that goes in every direction. And it's like he's got his ego involved. Like we can help you to raise a lot of money for your work and your mission in Calcutta. And she said, no, I'm not interested in raising money or your radio station getting a. She said, I just want to talk about the homeless shelter, that's all. And he's exasperated. And finally and he's down on his knees, really. And finally she says, stand up. She said, you seem so serious. She said, there is one thing that you can do. And he just stood up and he said, well, what is it? I'd do anything. She said, well, tomorrow morning, she said, get up at 4 a.m. And she said, and go out onto the streets of Phoenix and find someone who's living there, who believes that he's alone, and convince him that he's not. That's what you can do. And behind the feeling we're talking about here is this feeling of aloneness for so many people who are lost in the world, that I don't have like a connection to something greater than myself. I've come to believe that who I am is what I do, and what I have, and what other people think about me, and who I am is separate from everybody else, and who I am is separate even from what I'd like to attract into my life, that I'm separate from all the things that are missing, and I'm separate even from God, and that there's a place within me that knows that I'm not separate from any of that, that if there's no place that God is not, or that source is not, or the energy that provides, that is always giving and always creating is not, if there's no place that it is not, then it has to be in me. I know that. And if there's no place that is not, and it has to be in me, it has to be also in everything that is missing in my life, or that I think is missing. It's there too. So that in some mysterious, invisible way, I'm already connected to everything that's missing in my life through something called spirit. And when I recognize that I'm not here as this human being having a spiritual experience, when you recognize that your essence is that you are a spiritual being having a human experience, not the other way around, when you really get that, I mean, not that you can say it and it's clever, but when you know that who you are is this essence, you don't see, there's no other, there's no them. There's nothing outside of you. You're connected to everyone and everything. As the Native Americans, you'd say that no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. Living the Tao Te Ching, this 2,600-year-old, some people call it the greatest, the wisest book ever written. It speaks so much about relationships. Tao, the word Tao means the great way. It's really just another synonym for God, or source, or spirit, or that which is the all-creating. And one of the things that it says that was really helpful to me, probably the most helpful thing in it, was that whenever you have a conflict of any kind, in any relationship, whenever you have a conflict, that the person who is willing to be of Tao, of God, of Source, is the one who will practice forgiveness, or will go to the person that they have a conflict with and bring love to it, instead of the freeze out, instead of the anger, instead of the hatred, instead of the revenge, instead of so many of the things that we do when we have conflicts in our lives. We just don't talk to that person. Like, I'm not talking to that. I'm not talking to him. He's, he's going to call me because I called the last time. And that's but the person who lives the Tao life, the life of a higher consciousness, is the person who says, I end all conflicts on love, which is where we all come from. We come from a source that is love. So for me, that has been just so useful. I have 8 children, and that's been just extraordinarily helpful for me to be in a relationship where I can always be of love, where I can just, and so then you don't even, conflicts become something that are no longer present, because conflict requires two-ness. In order to have a conflict, you have to have two different opinions or whatever. But if you live in oneness, if you really see yourself in everyone else, see yourself in all the things, including the plants, including the animals, and including all beings and so on. If you just suspend this ego part of you and just see yourself in that other person, then your arguments are really with yourself, and your hatreds are really about yourself. And you begin to really see that I don't have to project anything onto anyone else that isn't what I choose to be. You do U-turns in your life. I've done U-turns in my life. And it's having the curiosity, it's having the willingness to say, this isn't working for me. It's like you get bit by a snake, and you're bit, okay? But the bite doesn't kill you. You're still there, you don't die from a snake bite. You don't die from you don't get hurt from what somebody else does to you. It's the venom that continues to pour through your system after the bite. That's what causes difficulties in relationships and so on. And when you recognize that to be angry, to be full of revenge, I could bring anybody in this crew in here and do a muscle test with them and ask them a question, to hold your arm out like this, and think about somebody who's abandoned you or abused you, who did something that you didn't like, who borrowed money from you and didn't pay it back, who walked out on you, someone that you hate, and just for a moment, hold your arm out as hard as you can. I'm going to put 2 fingers right here, and I'm going to push down, and you think about getting revenge. You just think about, even if you don't want to do that, just think the thought of, I'm going to get even with that bastard for what he did or what she did. I'm going to really get even with him. And you push, and that you find out that they have no strength when you think a thought of revenge. There's no strength in that. Kinesiology, say, very simple test. Then if I say to yourself, okay.
I have somebody that.
Okay, sit down. All right, here, come over this way. Okay, just put your arm up.
Is that here?
No, over here.
Over here?
Yeah, just hold this. Okay. Now, I'd like you to think of, first of all, tell me your name.
Michael.
Michael what?
Gorgian.
Is that the truth?
Yeah.
Tell me you're telling the truth.
I'm telling you the truth.
My name is?
Michael Gorgian.
And that is the truth? Okay,
That's
resist me as hard as you can, okay? And I'm going to just push down, okay? So that's the truth. Now for just 1 second, just make up a name. But tell me that it's the truth. I want you to lie to me. What is your name?
My name is Ron Garcia.
My name is Ron Garcia. Is that the truth?
Yes, that's the
You're
truth.
telling me the truth?
That's the truth.
Say it again. My name is?
My name is Ron Garcia.
And that is?
The truth.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. You see the shift? Can you see a change in you? Mm-hmm. Can you see a slight change in you?
Yeah,
okay, you're strong.
That.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'd like you, I'm just doing that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'd like you to think about someone. I'd like you to move over this way. There we go. I'd like you to think about someone in your life that abused you, abandoned you, that did something to, without any details, I don't want to know any of the details, and you are hurt by it, and you are angry about it. And forget about whether you've forgiven them or not. I want you to just think about getting even with them. I want you to think about revenge, okay? I'm going to get even with that person, no matter what, okay? And put your arm out, and can you hold on to that thought of revenge, okay? I'm going to get even with that person for what they did. I'm angry at them. And hold on to that thought and just think, resist me as hard as you can. And notice what's happening with your arm. Resist, again, one more time. Think that thought. I'm really going to get angry. I'm really pissed. I'm really hurt. I'm going to get you back for that, okay? And resist me as hard as you can. Now notice what's happening here. You have almost no strength. I'm not even pushing down. Now I want you to just change the thought.
Okay.
I want you to change the thought right now. And I want you to change it to one of love and forgiveness. I just want you to surround them with the light of God. I want you to surround them with the most beautiful love that you can think of. And just think of that thought. They did what they knew how to do, given the conditions of their life. I can't ask any more of anybody than that. Put your arm out. Put your arm out. Resist me as hard as you can, and forgive them in your heart. And forgive them in your heart. Now get even, get angry, get really. I'm going to get really even with them, and watch what happens. Can you see the change? You see the change? Okay. That's how it works. You see? Every thought you have of shame, every thought you have of anger, every thought you have of revenge is a thought that weakens you. Every muscle in your body. It's even in your eye.
Well, I think, even I've, like I couldn't look at you when
Yeah.
my attention
I could
goes
see the shift.
somewhere.
Your heart is a muscle, isn't it? How many times do we say to our children, you should be ashamed of yourself? Think of, here, watch, put your arm up. Resist me as hard as you can. Think of a moment in your life when you felt great love. The greatest love you ever felt in your life. Just think of that moment. And I don't want to know anything about it, just think about who it was, okay? Can you think of a moment like that? Great love. Michael is just loved, okay? And look, I can't budge you, right? I'm pushing really hard. Now think of a moment when you felt shame. You just did something and you're just ashamed of it, whatever it was, okay? You think of something like that? Okay, resist me as hard as you can. You're thinking shame, and just watch what happens to your arm. Look. No matter how hard you try, you have no strength, do you? You have no strength, okay? Now think love. Think love. Just think of that moment and shift. You see the change? Now think shame.
I'm trying hard.
Yeah. Think shame. Just think of shame. You're ashamed. You're really ashamed. Whatever you did, you're really ashamed. You really screwed up, okay? Resist me, sir. Look, you have no strength. Look, you can't. You know where I learned it? I learned it from my dentist. What? My dentist. I had crowns put into my teeth, and he would get me out of the chair. I said, who's this crazy man? You know, he'd get me out of the chair. He was adjusting the occlusion. He'd say, bite down. And then and if I'd go weak, he'd say, it's not right yet. And he'd put me back in the chair. He'd adjust a little more. And he said, now it's perfect. And it always was. It always was. Wow. This is the power.
Who's your dentist?
It's like, what we just demonstrated here is the power of the thoughts that we have. What a thought of shame, a thought of anger, a thought of revenge, what it does to the muscles of our body. The muscles of our, it's like, the reason I ask you to tell me a lie, is because I wanted to test your body, because your body wasn't made by your parents. We like to think that our bodies were made by our parents. That's because you look a certain way and all of that. But if we take the tiny little drop of protoplasm that created you, and we try to find out its origin, and we take it all the way back to subatomic particles and reduce it, we find out when we put it in a particle accelerator and rev it up at 250,000 miles an hour and collide it, and we open it up, there's nothing there. That you came from the invisible, you came from source. It's the spirit that gives life. So that once you understand that this body of yours is a creation not of human beings, but it's a creation of God. It's a creation of source. It came from nowhere and an invisible source and manifested into the world of the physical. And so it only reacts to truth, because it was created by truth. So once you lie, this is an ultimate lie detector test. That's why I always say we could have saved $93 million with President Clinton. It's like, come on. Did you have sex or didn't you? Let's get over this, But now you're using an instrument not of human beings. All of our bodies are divine creations, and they only react to truth with strength. The truth that when you go weak, you're going against your Tao nature. Your true nature is not revenge. Your true nature is not hatred. You came from love, and you have to stay in that state. And once you learn that, once you get that, having that demonstrated could change your life. Just that moment can change forever. People ask me, what is your biggest confusion about humanity? It's like man's inhumanity to man. This recognition that we are something beyond ego. And we don't, we have a divided world, a world that believes that, if you're male, you're different than if you're female. If you're Muslim, you're different than if you're Christian. If you're born on one side of the river, then you're different than the person who wasn't. And we've taken on all of these ego beliefs. And my real strong thing about it is that I think that the generation my generation, when I was in my 20s and so on, we were the generation that had to end a war. You know, we had to end a war. I took my doctoral orals on the 4th of May, 1970. The announcement came on the radio, on the television, you know, at around 4 in the afternoon, that the government had put live bullets into their rifles, and they fired on students who were protesting the war at Kent State, and 4 of them were killed. You can imagine what I felt, because I was really working very hard to try to end that war, when I had to go in and defend my dissertation, which seemed so trivial, when I considered what our government was now doing. We were going to put and all these students were doing was protesting a horrific war where people were dying in huge, huge, huge numbers. I think the new generation, this generation, it's their job isn't to end a war. It's to end war. It's to end the concept of war. And the concept of war comes out of this ego identification of who we are, and a belief that I am what I have, and I am what I do, and I am what others think of me, and I am separate from everyone, separate from God, separate from what's missing, this idea of separation and so on. And we will inch by inch move towards a place where people will begin to recognize their connection to each other rather than their separation, or we'll have to just start all over. We'll have to start it over. As Einstein said, if the next war that is fought, he said, after this one will be fought with, with sticks again. We'll have to start all over again. We'll have to start all over. And it's really about slaying this ego, this massive ego thing. You can see it in our foreign policy. You can see it in the way that we treat it. You can see it on television. You can see it in all of the ads that you see for having to take pills for everything. And that's what I feel my work is about. What my life is about now is ending the concept of hatred and separation.
What I've learned from all of this is, the biggest thing I'm learning is, seems like the intentions that we have, even when we're 1 year, 2 years, 3 and 4 years old, all get played out in the end as our life evolves. And they get played out in ways that we often don't understand. Unless you have a good memory of what you wanted when you were 3 or 4, you often don't remember that what you were asking for then you now have. And I've watched my life evolve to everything I've ever wanted is happening. You know, it has happened along the way, and it is happening. And I guess the reason I think it's important for people to know that, I really want people to know that there's nothing that they can't be or do or have, and that there's nothing they can't change to or from if they want to, and where there's no one's locked in anywhere. And also, those so-called dreams or daydreams you had when you were really little of the beautiful, wonderful things you wanted to be or do or do for the world and so on and so forth, they all come true. But they don't necessarily come true in the way you may have envisioned them. But if you look back, you'll say, oh, that's the essence of everything I ever wanted. It's here. Or everything I was ever afraid of, it's also here. Okay. Esther, how about you bringing Abraham in and let Abraham visit for a few minutes here?
Okay.
It just takes her a moment. Esther just kind of relaxes her mind, and actually you're going to see it. She just kind of relaxes, and nothing major happens. It's just she just allows this other energy more or less to move through her.
It is nice to have an opportunity to visit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is the single most important thing that you consciously do, because the thought that you are thinking, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking, isn't it? So the thought that you are thinking is vibrational in nature and therefore attractive in nature. So if you have a habit of thought, a belief, which is therefore a dominant thought, which is therefore a big part of your vibrational offering, therefore it is a big part of your point of attraction. So when you care enough to take the time to change it from what you are terming negative to positive, you have shifted your point of attraction. Nothing is more important than understanding that. We would like to help you to remember that you are more than you see here in this physical body, and that larger part of you is always eternally offering a powerful vantage point and vibration. When you come forth into your physical body, a part of that consciousness flows into this personality that you know as you. So, at all times when you are in your physical form, you have the potential of offering a thought that causes alignment with that broader part of you, or not. And we would say the thoughts that you offer that are in vibrational harmony or alignment with that larger part of you would be that state of integrity that you are looking for, coming together with that broader part of me. It's also important to remember that that larger part of you, that eternal part of you, exists even while you are in your physical form. In other words, often people think, well, you are dead or alive, you are physical or non-physical, but you are eternally that non-physical source energy. And then you are sometimes this physical human energy. And those 2 points of vibrations, that eternal part that is pure positive energy, and that physical part that could be, as you say, negative or could be, as you say, positive at any moment, those vibrational vantage points are always playing off of one another. The better you feel, the more you are vibrationally in integrity to that which you are. Vibrational integrity is alignment with that which I am. So, reaching for good feeling thoughts is really the key to coming into alignment with that which you are. And we think that's the best description of integrity that could be. Your feelings are the way you quantify your journey from sickness to wellness. The way you feel is the way you quantify your journey from not enough money to enough money. You must have a way of understanding where you are in relationship to what you want. And because more than 99% of every creation is completed vibrationally before you see any physical evidence, you can't use the physical evidence to know. If you have an illness and you want to be well, you may have found many thoughts that have improved your point of attraction, and you may be vibrationally well along the way to your recovery. But because the physical manifestation has not yet shown itself, if you stop and take score of where you are physically, you may very well become upset because the tests do not give you the affirming confirmation that you are on your way to wellness. Where if you understand that your emotions are giving you that feedback, then even though the manifestation has not shown you your recovery, the fact that you feel so much better is your indication that you are moving in the right direction. And if you continue to move in the right direction, your recovery must be. As Jerry and Esther travel from Phoenix to San Diego, they never get out there in the desert halfway and become so frustrated that they are not yet in San Diego that they become disoriented and turn around and go back to Phoenix. It would be a very long journey, wouldn't it? Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma. And the reason that doesn't happen is because they understand where they are in relationship to where they want to be. Your emotions are the only way you can accurately understand where you are in relationship to where you want to be. Once you get that down, and you do as Joseph Campbell said, you learn to follow your bliss, now you always have guidance, you see.